Okay, so in this next panel, we are talking about leadership, right? We've been actually talking about leadership all day, right? But in this next panel, we're talking about leadership and the lived experiences of modern, brave male leaders at work and at home. So our moderator, I'm gonna take this out. Our moderator will be Katherine Von Jan, my friend KVJ, the co-founder and CEO of Tough Day, a company pioneering human-positive AI to help employees self-manage, build resilience, and thrive in manager-light workplaces. She previously served as Chief Strategy Officer at Salesforce, driving innovation across the enterprise and leading Salesforce Incubator and Futures Lab. KVJ is a fearless advocate for human-positive cultures and technology, and her insights have been featured in CNBC, Forbes, Fortune, Wall Street Journal, and Wired. I'm honored to call her a friend and advisor. We have Joshua DuBois, CEO, strategist, and founder of one of the nation's leading social impact and insights firms. He also leads the Dad Games, woo! The viral social media movement that is the first Olympics for dads. He's a former Obama advisor and best-selling author. He helps brands move culture with purpose, and he lives in Maryland with his wife, Michelle, and their 3 awesome kids. We have Dirk Doebler, the founder and CEO of Parento, an employer's all-in-one solution for paid parental leave. Parento provides insurance coverage for paid parental leave, helping companies roll out an equitable and affordable policy to support their employees. We have Jonathan Otto, the SVP of North America at BBC Studios. He's a veteran media executive with 2 decades of experience leading brand storytelling, commercial strategy, and high-growth teams across media marketing and public affairs with brands like Axios, Political, Burson, and American Honda. All right, KVJ, let's do it.
Right on. Hello. Hi, everyone, and thank you, Jana. And actually, the day has been filled with these amazing leaders. I'm feeling very privileged to be here with all of you. And thank you for you and Adweek and all the sponsors who brought us all together. I think it's been pretty amazing. It's an exciting time to be talking about leadership, and it's a really hard time. Leadership's in crisis. Gallup came out saying 27% of managers only 27% of managers are engaged, which means a lot of people in pain at work. We've gone back to the 996, or borrowing that from China, working 9 to 9, 6 days a week. People are burnt out. We have unbossing happening, where Gen Z is saying, I don't aspire to be a manager, I don't want a manager, I can self-manage. There's just a lot of pain in the organization, and you're all getting up every day as amazing leaders and as dads. And I want to start off the conversation about what you're learning about leadership from your family. What is it like with your children, and what are you taking to the workplace to lead differently? And I'll just say, maybe we'll start with you, Josh.
What am I learning about leadership from my family? So many things. Maybe I'll start with yelling almost never works. In the long run, probably not in the short run either. When I started our company almost 13 years ago, the stakes seemed so high, and I felt like I needed to focus on accountability and just holding people's feet to the fire and so forth. And it seemed to speak to one part of themselves, but the smallest part of themselves, as opposed to helping them paint a picture of what productivity and thriving and using their skills could really mean for both our organization and for them. And, being a dad, I realized really quickly, my wife and I realized that we would get so much further if we focus not just on all the things you're not supposed to do, but let me show you what it could mean for you, for our family, for just your own joy and fun and experience if things came together in the right way. And so that more positive perspective on how to motivate people to do something certainly spans from the workplace to home and back. So yeah, that's what comes to mind.
Amazing.
Right before I had my son, a friend of mine that had kids prior to pulled me aside and he was like, "Are you ready to always have eyes on you from now on?" And like to say that was the understatement of the century for me, and having a son for the first time is true. You know, you're kind of thrown into, you're automatically a role model whether you want to or not. Hopefully you take that responsibility full hog. And so I actually, it's interesting, like in leading teams in many respects, you know, there's a difference between being a manager and being a leader, I think in some respects. And there's no wrong way to look at that. But I have found that like you are always going to have eyes on you if you're a leader of a team. If you're a leader of an organization, how you handle crisis, how you motivate the team, how you show up with empathy, how are you individualizing your conversation with each of your direct reports, and ultimately how are you putting your managers of their teams in the best position possible to succeed. And so you kind of, the expectation is like you're creating essentially a cycle of role models in some way. So fast forward now, my son is 6. I have a soon-to-be 2-year-old daughter, and to say that like all eyes are on me as much as they are on him now with her is really, really interesting to see. And he's got the most patience with her as possible. But I think a lot of times there's like a lot of stress associated with, you have responsibility for a team in the workplace as much as you have responsibilities at home. But if you kind of flip the script on that and look at it as an opportunity to actually shape those that are around you, then I think that's a like really freeing way to experience it differently. So I've always taken that away of like, you always have eyes on you, but like look at it in the positive sense of the impact that you can have.
So I have a 2.5-year-old, so I'll tell you how a toddler has made me a better manager of humans and adults. So what I've really discovered a lot with having such a young child is like they're going through so much development mentally, right? Like a 2.5-year-old, like he's emotionally has no capacity, but it like feels like they're more independent. And so my approach to parenting has now been like, meet them where they are. Like, where are you mentally? Where are you in your development? Because I can't approach you as I would an adult or a 6-year-old because you don't have the mental capacity or capabilities. And so ultimately it's like I've been applying that logic to like the skill sets of the employees. Like, what are the actual soft skills and capabilities? Because we run a startup, and that's an environment that not everybody is able to do well in when you have very different processes or lack thereof, or you're kind of getting ahead of your skis in sometimes. And so you have to manage the emotional challenges that come with working in a startup, not just like the hard skills. Like we hire good salespeople, they know how to sell, but can they adapt to the environment which they're working in? And so much of dealing with my child is like actually understanding how do you work with this person as an individual and a person rather just as an employee, and like what motivates them, where is their EQ, where are their soft skills, where are their hard skills, and then finding ways to help them adapt and learn the skills they need, but also making sure we're not putting them in situations that they can't handle, or if we are, we're helping them adapt based on their actual capabilities.
It sounds like you're putting a lot of energy into your teams, which is great. And I know like you're all building successful businesses, you're all, wining and dining, building emotionally strong, intellectually strong, and hopefully financially strong relationships with clients. Now trying to do that with your team. And we know that at the same time there's this great flattening and there's fewer resources. I'm just wondering, how are you building those deep relationships with your team when you're time crunched, when you have market demands, when you have so much going on? And if you'd each share a tip for the rest of us for managing all of that. Building a deeper relationship with your team.
I think there's an element of being vulnerable with your team, providing that emotional vulnerability, letting them in. I think a lot of male leaders like that stoicism, and that can be really helpful at certain points in time, but we want to build that relationship and respect, having that more personal connection, helping people understand, like, no, I'm actually very stressed about this too, or I'm worried about this too, and this is how we're going to deal with. Like, meeting people like as humans, I think really helps, and having that vulnerability helps build deeper respect than just being totally stoic within the environment. And I've tried to find ways I'm not an emotional person, but try to find ways to allow that emotion to show in certain conversations, in meetings, especially when people are maybe have their own emotions showing, and not necessarily focus on the stoicism, because I think that helps people like not necessarily feel alone, but they feel recognized and they feel heard.
Yeah. Go ahead, please. Would agree with that on vulnerability. We try to just be extremely human with each other as often as we can, even while we're balancing the needs of the work day. We deal with really heavy things on a regular basis. We do a lot of creative and marketing work, but also a lot of crisis response on really tough issues related to race and religion and class and more. And that heaviness needs a break sometimes. And so we do a conversation on our staff call every Wednesday morning that has absolutely nothing to do with work. We'll throw a question out. What's the best concert you've ever been to? What albums are you listening to right now? Like we'll screen share Spotify playlists and give some recommendations and just get to know each other in a different way. So that's one thing. The second thing is we try to really show up for people in their toughest moments, and we can't do this all the time. And it's a workplace, and there's a certain formality to some relationships. But when someone loses a parent or a grandparent, when someone is navigating a crisis in their lives, we try to be very, very human with them. We try to give them the space to process that. If we can help out in some way, then we try to do that as well. And people really, we're not doing it because they remember that, but it helps you deepen the relationship when you show up for people in their toughest times.
So this is week 4 for me at the BBC. So I'm literally living through this right now. I've had to establish deep relationships with my new team. At Axios, I was there 6 years, including when everything shut down through the pandemic. We were already, as a startup organization, doing something for the first time every single day, trying to establish and create culture that overnight pivoted to fully virtual, to a point where it was a year or 2 years in, where a number of people across the team who worked together 40, 50, 60 hours a day hadn't actually met in person yet. Like there was a real expectation of how do you create the glue and culture that's going to keep a team motivated, intellectually curious, know that there's space to also be obviously human, as folks were going through so many different experiences through that time. And so I think there's like a practicality element to it as well that I've applied and I've brought to the team at the BBC. So we have a thing called user guides. So it's like a fun page and a half type of a thing, maybe 4 or 5 different questions that are all templatized on what are the ways of which you like to work with others and how do you like to receive communication, things like that. So at a minimum, everyone has their own user guide. It's fun to revisit over years as well, and then it's visible to everyone else on the team. The other thing is Gallup Strength Finder. If anybody's ever taken that before, the last 2 organizations I was at, we were really steeped and trained in what that meant and the communication style professionally. So that also helped with a little bit of a level playing field. But my number one strength has always been in individualization, and I've really taken that to heart on how I work differently with many different folks within the organization. Ultimately, how do you establish really deep relationships internally, as well as how you show that level of vulnerability with clients externally too. And then one last thing I'll just share that has started to help me a little bit more with managing folks is there's a help, heard, or handled model. So if there's your direct report or somebody's coming to you with something, kind of put it in the context of, does this person really need help with this issue? Do they just want to be heard, but they know they can handle it themselves? Or do they really need to be handled? And that's where it's escalated. And so it's not an exact science, but it's fun to apply, as you're taking on so many different things that are incoming, so you're useful to your team. Hasn't quite worked on the home front with the toddler.
Not yet.
If my 2-year-old is melting down in Trader Joe's, I'm like, it's not a help her to handle their moment. Like, we're going to get you the peach that you want.
You should ask him that in real time. Do you want to be help her or
But
professionally, for sure, I've seen success with it.
it sounds like what you're all describing is this new idea of management as caring, or managing as truly caring, and the way that you do care for your family. And I wonder if you can talk about the sort of brave new world, moving from kind of command and control style of leadership to this notion of caring and empowering and getting your team to do what's right. And maybe they're not, maybe they coexist. But could you talk about the overarching model of leadership that you see that you're stewarding? And we'll start with you, Dirk.
Yeah, so a big thing I'm trying to do is not necessarily solve problems for employees. When they bring something to me, I try to say, hey, what would you do? Like, what do you think we should be doing? And get them to provide the answer and provide advice on that. Obviously, if it's like a technical question they don't know, like guidance or maybe where they can find it so they can be more self-sufficient. But my goal is always to get people to be autonomous, people to make their decisions, and then ask the deeper probing questions, and even ensuring, like, when we're having conversations, checking in, like, how are you doing? Okay, how are you feeling about stuff? Especially because things can be overwhelming. So ensuring that we're maintaining, like, the emotional component there and assisting people with things, especially if they're new to startup environment where, like, they can be very overwhelmed, and then walking them through, like, how to address things, and then continuing to get their guidance on what they think they could be doing. So I'm very big on trying to make sure people can get to that point, because a lot of people don't have startup experience don't have that level of autonomy. They're not necessarily used to it, especially in certain functions where things are given to them and they kind of go and do their job and they're not thinking through, they're analyzing, and that's a big lift for a lot of people. So for us, we pay very close attention to making sure we're cultivating the harder skills and softer skills simultaneously by putting the onus on people to, like, really kind of think through what they need and what they're doing and make sure they're getting the advice that they need.
I think it's like this joke. If I was going out with a sales rep on my team, we were going to meet with a client, or we were doing a call with a client, whether I knew the client or not. If we're doing the introductions around the horn, and I would we'd do like the titles or whatever, and I would say, oh, but no, I'm really just here to carry so and so's bags, like the person on my team. And it was just like a moment of levity to loosen up the loftiness of the titles, and also really provide some confidence for the person that's in the room with me, who maybe they haven't done a meeting with me before, or this is a new client, or they don't fully feel comfortable, whatever it might be. So like create the space for being themselves a little bit more, and clear the room, I think is a big piece of the leadership and culture style. I think the other part of it is, especially in the media space, like there's just a lot of intensity right now with trying to navigate that with brands and with clients that are trying themselves to navigate the situation. I said on the business side of the organization at the BBC and previous ones, and so editorially there's certainly a lot of challenges with that, and so that can also put the folks that are on the team in a bit of a pressure cooker, or fear of making mistakes in some way. So again, like really ensuring that, yes, if a mistake happens, we're going to address it, but it's not a critical issue or a systemic issue with that person necessarily, right? Like, how do we solve for it going forward is where I'll always take the position of, and like the way that it's been described is like, how do you take servant leadership style, right? It's like there's two ways of. There's a leader who kind of loves to give the speech from the balcony and looking down onto the orchestra over the team, and there's those that like to address the team from within and kind of on the floor with them together. And so that's always been a mentality that I've had based off of learnings that I've taken away from leaders that I've experienced previously. That's the type of leader I've always just gravitated to, and I've seen the more success with it as a team member, and and how do you apply that success as a leader of a team?
Yeah, it took me a long time to embrace the notion of the workplace and our community at work as a family. I used to, in fact, be very, very clear, like we can be compassionate with one another, we can be empathetic, but this is not your family. And I thought I needed to do that because of the need for accountability sometimes. Sometimes, folks have to go on a PIP. Sometimes you have to let people go. And it was actually our employees that gave me a more nuanced picture of that over time, in lots of different ways. I mentioned loss, and so there have been a few times where there's an employee who lost his sister suddenly, and we all sort of rallied around him. there are even things that are not as severe. There was an employee who separated with her longtime partner, and it was a really tough moment. And again, she was able to lean into this community at work in a way that was very important for her at that time. We've navigated geopolitical crises together that really impacted people personally, from Israel and Gaza to here at home, and folks leaned on the space that we try to create on a morning call, where folks can bring any issue to the table, and other spaces. And a few of them pulled me to the side and say, "I know you say this is not a family, but it feels like a family to me, and I want you to be okay with that, Joshua." And so I've had to embrace that the workplace can be different things at different times, and it's okay for it to feel like a family at times.
So it can feel like a family and you can enjoy each other, but there's also a really important point where the employees have to actually feel connected to the work, to the purpose, to themselves. And I wonder, and I'm going to toss this one to you, John, how are men in particular able to create that connection with work and sense of purpose and authenticity in your organization? What have you been learning in this time?
Well, I don't know if you've seen, Ford just rolled out a new brand campaign. It's called Ready, Set, Forward. They're running a number of commercial spots. And there's one of the lines in one of the spots I saw over the weekend is a line that a former boss used to say, which I always love. And it's, there are people that say they can do it and people say that they can't do it. And the reality is that they're both right. And it's just such a simple way to look at it when you're working with people too. How are they motivated for the right reasons or not, and what's exciting them about their job. I'm big on in the role itself. Do you have the level of intellectual curiosity, to essentially meet the demand of the client that's on the other side of the table with you, that might have former advisory role in the administration or member of Congress or whatever it might be, a board of directors member and someone in the C-suite. And so being able to have that perspective is really important. I think in terms of the purpose and authenticity piece of it in work, I mean, if we're all going to hustle and really grind out what you're going to do this many hours a day, you got to love what you're going to do. If not, it's just going to show that you don't. And if you don't love what you're doing, then there shouldn't be an expectation that you're going to be able to advance in your career in that job. So go and try something that. Or find something that you are more passionate about. And I think with right now, the media landscape has splintered and fragmented in so many different directions, not just in terms of the type of editorial, but also the formats themselves, the platforms as well. So in some respects, you can really just curate your own individualized media diet, and there's certainly benefit to that, to opening up some level of connection and learning new things. The downside of it is it creates a harder opportunity to have a conversation with somebody that's not in the same exact shard of glass that's consuming the same type of content, and that's playing out in real time. My old boss and the co-founder of Axios, Jim Vandehei, talks a lot about this shards of glass mentality that's happening in the media space. So I think as a manager too and a leader, when you're talking with teams, it's that much more important to understand and approach it with individualization and understand what are what's the background this person has that essentially has got them to the place that they are. What are their aspirations? What are their goals? How can you help facilitate that within the construct of the organization that you're working in, and also have a tough conversation with somebody who's not motivated and is burned out to say, look, it's probably time you got to find something else. Let's help you. Let's put you on a path to another place, but you got to minimum raise your hand and show a willingness to want to be able to do that.
Yeah. To pivot a little bit, Dirk, I'm going to come to you now. When we're talking about creating that environment where you can even have those conversations, starts with really Maslow's hierarchy of needs, really feeling safe, secure, being taken care of. You've got a platform to give parental leave. To share a story from Salesforce a few years ago, we had parental leave. Men didn't take it, women did. But women were in a situation where they kind of had to, more or less, and we made it mandatory that all men had to take parental leave to level the playing field. Now, thank you, yes. And it really worked. And by the way, men love it, and I think that's what you see in your data too, right? 100% of men that are offered parental leave and through your platform take it. What are you learning from them? What are you hearing about those workplaces and how they've changed since getting Parento?
Yeah, so I'd say, so everybody who has it will take it. Not everybody will take a lot of time. Over 80% of dads that take leave on our program will take more than 3 weeks, which is better than the national average, which is around 5% of people take more than 2 weeks. So we definitely see when you offer it, dads want to take it and they want to be involved, but we still very much see kind of a conflicted attitude about taking leave. We had a father who wasn't sure he wanted to take leave before his kid arrived, and then he did. He took his full 4 weeks, and then he actually ended up dying of stomach cancer. And so for us, we're like, we try to leverage that, say, you live in that moment, spend that time with your child, because you don't know what's going to happen. And for the vast majority of people, like, work is frankly not that fulfilling. Like, do you really want to miss like the most formative time with your children and your partner at home so that you can get some report out sooner that you're not going to remember in 20 years? So we offer a layer of support and coaching with emotional support, parenting advice to parents on top of the parental leave. And so we try to engage the parents through direct conversations and like really help them prioritize what they want in life, especially for the new parents. Like, what kind of parent do you want to be? What kind of partner do you want to be? What kind of employee do you want to be? And really help them take a good hard look at themselves. And it can be hard for a lot of people who are really career oriented to like take that moment, but we think it's really helpful for them to understand the broader consequences in the house, on their partner, and on the child when they take that leave versus not. And we see it makes a big difference. So we are seeing a lot of people taking more time than we did about 3 or 4 years ago. So we're seeing a cultural shift, but overall there still has to be a major cultural shift across the country to get dads to even get the parental leave and then get them to actually take a majority of the time.
I wonder if you see some correlation with management, with leadership, with the success of organizations where parental leave is normalized and men are taking it. Are they more successful as business?
I don't know if the businesses themselves are necessarily more successful, but when we have these interactions with the parents, we definitely see a paradigm shift when they're actually talking to one of our coaches, because they will tell us about their approach to actual management and then the home and how they're taking lessons that they've learned from our parent coaches and applied them to work to be better managers. And we see the same thing for moms too, where we're helping them through, or they're better parents, and so they're able to apply that to work. And we definitely see them become major advocates, the dads specifically, become major advocates of taking that parental leave and encouraging other people to take that leave and use it, and then even use our additional resources. We actually see about 40% of people who talk to our coaches are men. So people will be like, oh, it's like 90% women. It's like most of them are men. And then about half of the people having kids are actually doing the coaching with their partner at home too. So it's really more like 50% of the time, 60% of the time, a dad is involved in that parent coaching. And then we're seeing them report like life lessons, like we've discussed here, applying that to work, and then becoming advocates for maintaining that policy and our resource at the company.
Just
Amazing.
to double click on that, this is very anecdotal, Dirk, you're the expert, but from what we've seen, parental leave for men absolutely accelerates productivity. A colleague, one of our SVPs, Kelsey, is on his second round of parental leave now, but the first time, after 2 days, he was responding to emails and like jumping back in. I'm like, dude, you are never gonna get this snuggle time back. Like this is, you have to soak this in right now. So he went off, took the leave, came back, and went hard. I mean, he was just a different person, and I think part of that was because we acknowledged him and his role as a parent in such a significant way. And so when he came back into the workplace, he wanted to double down on everything that he was up to. And so just very anecdotal, but it seems to accelerate productivity.
And I would just add to that too, the last thing, the ability to potentially split up your paternity leave so that you don't have to take it all up front is a great option. I'm not sure if all employers are offering that, like the last two that I've been at have, but I didn't do that for my son. I did that for my daughter, who split it, and it was just such a great way to also, like, the first couple of weeks, right? You don't know it from down, but come back to work and then take more time when my daughter was around 6 months old. Like it was a wholly different dynamic at home to be able to support that. My wife had 6 months of maternity leave, so I kind of timed it essentially for her last month before she went back to work, that we were able to, really like fully decompress and pull ourselves out from work and enjoy that time together as a family.
Amazing. Joshua, you're advising a lot of male leaders through crisis, maybe the other end of the spectrum. Not a joyful baby, but difficult times. And I wonder if you can talk about the role of faith and faith communities in your work and what leaders can take with them.
Sure. I mean, faith is a part of who many people are, certainly for me and maybe others in the room as well. And we encourage people to be who they are and the fullness of who they are and bring that into the workplace. Now, of course, there are boundaries and parameters around that, but we see leaders be much more effective, much more productive when they don't feel like they have to hide parts of themselves. And by the way, sometimes those parts of themselves that they feel like they have to keep back are the things that really draw people to them, and that they can become your superpower when you acknowledge that in a public way. And it certainly has, for me, with employees from diverse backgrounds, from those who don't necessarily share my own belief system, but the fact that I can be unashamed about the fact that I do have a belief system, they can acknowledge theirs as well and feel very comfortable in our workplace.
And bridging multiple different faiths in that, are you, any tips for how you can lead those conversations or integrate it into your work?
Just finding our common humanity, finding the common ways that we find and share joy, the common ways that our hearts are broken. These are threads that cut across lots of different types of people, and frequently when you're bothered by something, when you're disturbed by something, someone who doesn't believe the same as you do is bothered or disturbed or joyful about some of the very same things. And so putting that all on the table and finding our common humanity.
Yeah, I want to thank you all. I think, like, for me, the big takeaway is fatherhood is truly leadership, and it sounds like your lives as fathers are really making an impact in the workplace, and that managing is caring, and it's got to be okay for us to care for our people and treat them like family. So thank you so much. And
Thank you.
thanks, everyone.